Hello, welcome to Management 291, Strategic Management. We'll be talking Chapter 6, Strategy and Analysis, and Choice. You're either taking me in a fully online class, a blended class that's half online, half face-to-face, or a full face-to-face class. This is a supplement. It's not the full lecture. It's just a quick overview of what we discussed. Uh, if you're not taking me for a class, your instructor might have recommended to look at this YouTube or this recording as an additional study guide for you. Okay, so here's what we have. Those of you who looked at the book, a lot of information. What it basically comes down to is several. Let's look at the thing. We're going to be looking processing, generating, selecting strategies, analytical framework, a SWAT matrix. We talked about that in a couple of previous chapters. Strategic positioning and action evaluation, another matrix, what they call space, and should have been a larger my error. Those, remember, I'm live. I don't do very little editing. I do very little editing. Steps to develop space matrix, Boston Consulting Group BCG Matrix, internal external matrix, IE. My error on that. Let me correct this right now since we are live. Okay, I just get rid of this. And I might have just, here we go. Okay, internal, external. Remember, we're live. I do my corrections online, just like I would do in the classroom. Matrix, grand strategy matrix, and planning, strategic planning matrix. Culture. Okay, so when I look at this, those who look at the book, oh my goodness, so many matrices. They're basically different graphs and other information. We discussed this in class, or we will discuss this in our lectures, a discussion board, or you looked at the publishers or the authors' short lectures explaining each one of these matrices. And the link is always included in Blackboard Course Management that you're taking me in. All right, so what do? I want you to look at them. I don't. I know you're not gonna. It's maybe overwhelming for some, but when you look at matrices or graphs, you have to look at and see what are they trying to tell you. So what I'm going to do in here in a half an hour, I am just going to basically go over the main parts. You have to look at them in the book and the other YouTubes that specifically do this. This is a capstone, a quick overview of what we had. So the Smith & Wesson Holding Company is a nice case. We may be discussing that if you're taking me on an online class or a blended class. If we're not discussing it, don't worry. Remember, because I record the lectures and I may change depending if it's an 18 weeks, 16 weeks, 8 weeks, or 12-week course. So I may not be able to cover everything, but I cover the main parts of it. So let's look at this first one. And as you know, you already will have my, wherever you get the plus, those you printed out my concept maps in PDF file. They're usually two big sheets. Print them out, tape them together, and you add this in with your own handwriting, in your own words. Simplified it. Don't put all the ands of it so you can remember how you do well in the test, either it's an online test or in a classroom test. Let me just view this a little bit longer. It's at 150. I'll go to 200 because all right. There we go. It's almost like when you guys write the papers for me. Give me that's why I go with a word count. Okay, manage your structure model. Again, I'm just going to click it on. You had that in the book. It just goes through the process. We discussed that in class. Manage your alternative. Now let's go what the model says. All right, they're all going to be models. So you got to be creative, think out of the box. Alternative strategies. Remember, we're thinking this is strategic management. How do I go forward in the next 2 to 5 years? Usually 2 years because things are changing so quickly because of technology, everything else. Okay, advantage and a disadvantage of the cost. Remember, this is selecting a model. Benefit the strategy should be determined. How much time is involved? Do I have the processes? Do I got the right individuals? Identified and evaluating alternative strategies. We're going to look at all of these. There's about 4 or 5 strategies you'll be looking at. Involved all managers who created the vision and the mission. In a lot of companies, there's some aspect, maybe not every employee, but from each work group, there's someone in there that's actually a part of the creating the mission statement. So it's a collective. So it's not just top management. Here's our mission or vision. We all understand that, and you'll send your representative to create this. Or you've done it with your department or your own department, and they came up with one, and then someone went in there, and we combined one to make it short and easy. Okay, alternative strategies, and whoever did the external audit and internal audit, we did that in the last couple of chapters. I think chapter 4 and 5, if I'm mistaken. Alternative strategy, consider, discuss as a group. You do it from the top, and they go, what do you think? Some input. We can't get everyone if you got a large company. Smaller company works a little easier because it's easy to manage. But then you can't have all your employees working on this and no one's doing work. You know, those customers, like it or not, they want to be taken care of. If it wasn't for the customers, I wouldn't be in business. Okay, propose a strategy listed in writing. You have to have it because you'll be sending this either through email or some kind of written document to other individuals so everyone understands what's going on. Feasible strategy, rank them in order of attractiveness. You have different strategy. Which way, when you look at attractiveness, not which is the best. I mean, you always try to find the best. Which one could I afford? Which one makes sense for now? Do I need it right away? Do I got a longer time? Okay. All right, so that takes care of that one. Now, the analytical framework, what is that going to do? It comes back into three phases, and I'll go into three of them. Again, here's the figure. You look at this here. I'm not going to go into this now because it's not a full lecture. Look in your book. Take your time. Read it. And the reason you have to do this, you've got the data and everything else. You utilize this framework, this matrix, to see how do I come up with a strategy. So it's kind of like a process in a living process, for lack of better words. And it's easier to explain why we selected this when you have to discuss this face to face or to your workforce or your different departments or your work group. Okay, so in this one, analytical, you have your first phase. It summarizes the input for the strategy. It looks at the external factors, internal factors, remember there's a combination, and it looks at the competitive profit matrix. There always has to be that money amount. Remember, it's got to be competitive. It's got to be profitable for the organization. If I'm taking a certain strategy, I hate to say it, but when the economy was down, we weren't looking as much as profit. We're looking at breaking even to stay alive, for lack of better words, until the economy came up. And now we're in if you look at the current administration or the Trump administration, the economy is growing. If I look future for the next, as long as he's going to be in office, for this term, for his first term, maybe the second term, who knows? I'm a business owner, so that's my fifth year. So I'm looking really at the first 2 years and anticipate here's what's going to happen in the third year. So I'm looking at now I can make a profit. So let's see how I basically, for lack of better words, what strategy should I use going forward. Okay, and then stage 2, I'm looking again. Here's the figures. You've got these external key and internal. Here's what maybe 20% or two major foreign competitors are coming in. That could be insufficient capacity. We discussed that in our discussion boards or in the lecture. So right. So what you're doing is you're kind of aligning key external and internal factors for what my strategic 2 year to 3 year. I hate to say 5 years because 5 years it's like really out there because things could happen when it's 6 months and I may have to modify my strategic plan. That's why I have different alternatives. Okay, and then in stage 3 we're going to look at attractiveness of alternative strategies. Provides objective based selecting to specific strategy depending on my company, depending on my vision, depending what I want to achieve. Okay, now the SWAT matrix. Let's talk about this. When I look at the SWOT, basically strength, weakness, opportunity, we've talked about it earlier. I introduced you by explaining a little bit. In business, everything I do, from the current to the future, the long-term strategy, I'm always looking at the company's traits and weaknesses and the opportunities and threats, and see could I have enough of a strength to overcome the threat or an opportunity. Okay, so here's the process. I list the firm's external properties. I list the firm's external. Remember, I'm talking strategic, so I'm looking at a company. If you're doing this for your department, you're going through the same process. When you look into the strengths and weakness of your internal department. If you're an individual and you're looking for a job, what's my strength and weaknesses? You're basically providing a service for an organization. Okay, list the firm's key internal weaknesses, and then I match them. Record the resilient strengths to weaknesses. And then the other one, and it makes sense when you look at the book. The other one is record the resilient. Let me just put this in here with a dash because some people are looking at and it's basically my weaknesses and my opportunities. So my plan may be that way. Okay, this makes it a little bit easier. I think, for individuals to see. Okay, match the internal strength. And remember, when you look at the book, they're matching it. So if I'm matching the external strengths with external threats, okay, so I have enough strengths to ride through the external threat. And the last one, matching internal weaknesses with external threats. Okay, and if you look at the reading, and we went through this in our discussion board or in the reading, you can't get away without the book. Too much information. I just want you to understand the graphs and what's going on. Okay, so then strengths and weakness opportunities uses a firm's internal strengths to take advantage of external opportunities. Let me go a little bit further up here. I forgot my picture's usually in there or my recording. The other one, weaknesses. There's weakness and opportunity strategies aim at improving internal weaknesses and take advantage of external opportunities. And this next one, strengths and threats. English second language for me. I'm also a little dyslexic. Why do you tell me that, Dr. George? Because you have to be able to adjust. What's my strength? What's my weaknesses? How do I turn around my weaknesses, what some people weaknesses, and make it a strength? Because I'm dyslexic, I have to see all the parts connecting. That's why I like using a concept map. If you're not, it's an easy way to see the whole chapter, what's going to be covered, what you should have learned. Okay, and then the last one is weaknesses and threats, W&T, defensive tactics, reducing internal weaknesses. How do I do that? And how do I avoid external threats? Do you see what I mean? So you're doing that now. Do you see where the SWAT comes in? You take me for management. You take me for finance. We always look at the strengths and weaknesses of our organization. How do I turn it around? Okay? Okay, the next one we're looking at is strategic positioning. What they consider space. I'm not going to do this, but a figure 4 space. Again, here's the figure. I'm not going to go into it. You have it in the book. Here's what's going to happen. It has 4 quadrants. Okay, whether aggressive or conservative, defensive or competitive, most appropriate given for the organization. These are all quadrants. So you have 2 internal dimensions. You have financial positions, and you have competitive position, CP. Those are the labels. So when you see them in kind of a statement, they don't say it out here. Remember, so you understand. Just think of the financial position and competitive position. Do I have enough money to compete with the competition? And then the next one is important determinants of organization overall strategy. And here's some examples. I'm not going to go through it, but remember, you can look at it, stop it, take a look at it. Here's the source, all right? That takes care of the for this one here, my strategic, my space. Now what I have in here is also steps for space. This one's kind of easy. How do I do my space? Remember, and what does space stand for? It basically stands for strategic position and action evaluation. Where am I standing? Another matrix. Why couldn't it be as easy as the matrix on TV? Remember, look at them. You'll be just testing on the main parts. I want you to see, and whichever matrix works well for your organization. It's like it's your bag of different tools for you to evaluate your company and come up with what we call an action plan going forward, a strategic plan for the next 2 years. Okay, it's 4 quadrants. We talked about this. Oh, that's this one here. Okay, steps. Select the steps of variables to define. Remember, you had the financial, the competitor. I even forgot some of them. All right, that's okay. What do I have in here? Oh, here we go. I knew I put them in here someplace. All right. I would remember just more the finance, the competition, stability position in the industry. Okay, now you assign a value. Just tell you how to do it. Assign a value from one to best. You're looking at a scale, and the next one you compute. Okay, then you compute the average score, okay, and then you plot it, and then you add the 2 scores on the axis. Remember, look at the author's things. He takes this one and shows you if you're going to be utilizing this for your company. When you look at the authors, he just looks at this one matrix and he walks through it. I'm just giving you a quick overview, okay, and then draw the directional line. All right, and here's a figure of the strategy. Do you see what I mean? Again, your book has this. Make it a little bit larger, okay, so it falls in line with the rest of them, and we're on track. Because otherwise, I remember in the classroom I spent a lot more time on this, and I only picked the ones I thought was the most important ones, okay, and I like using the SWOT ones. Okay, it froze up. Hang on a second. I've got a lot of stuff going, so this just got to bring back in because when I have it on the large. So read the book, look at this. I don't want to turn it off because it'll mess up my recording. And this will come in here in a second. It just takes a little while. What I have to do is not open up all these files like this. I got to get another computer with a little bit more memory. There we go. Let me just close this off. All right. Okay, so now let's look at this one. The next matrix, we're going to talk about the Boston Consulting. Okay, and I'll make that, so BCG. Again, it comes with another matrix, and here's what the matrix looks like. Okay, and you're going to do certain quadrants. Which one is here's the question. If you fall in this quadrant, you're going to take market penetration, development, market product. If you're the dogs, because you're doing bad, you're going to do reentrenchment, diversify, or you do liquidation. You can't change anything. Here's my product. If I get diversify, I bring another a part of the company in or another organization and try to do a little different market. If I look at Netflix, and then talk about this, another book I'm teaching in sports marketing or advertising. Netflix basically has Redbox, and then they basically had the streaming. So or Netflix, you could get the DVD sent to your home. That's getting out of there. They try to get rid of that, but they're diversifying. They're still the same thing. Let's do more of the streaming, and now they're doing with TV and everything else on there. Okay, so here's the matrix. Graphically portrays the difference among the divisions. So if you get a question on the exam, you're just going to get a question: what does this matrix basically do? Okay. Dismiss. All right. I got my pop-ups coming up there. Bad thing about doing live. Okay, major benefits of the matrix. Okay, allows multi-divisional organization to manage its business profile. Examine the market share, the growth rate of the division, and relative to all divisions in the organization. And if you look at Sears or some companies, when they're having competitors, which stores, which areas do I let go? And Walmart did a lot of that. They tried to go out to some more rural areas. It wasn't profitable, but they had a catalog. So they had a different model set up for those areas. Okay. Okay. Now question marks. Okay, and this is just the other one. If I look at the first quadrant, or decides to strengthen intensity, strategy, or sell them, market penetration, market development, or market or product development. In the second quadrant, your stars represents organization's best run opportunities for growth. There's some parts of the business that you're going to make some money on. The other parts, you got to let them go. Okay? In quadrant 3, cash cows. In business, when they talk about cash cows, they basically mean that's my money maker. Generates excess cash in excess of their need. I make more than I need to. Manage to maintain strong position as long as possible. And then the dogs. Compete in a slow or no market industry. You may be a market that doesn't grow. Businesses are often liquidated, diversified, or trimmed down through retrenchment. Okay, so we got that pretty good. The next one is internal-external matrix. Again, another matrix. Again, look at the. I can't spend the time on this, but look at this in the book. Look at the author's YouTube. Explains it. Remember, most companies aren't going to use all of these matrices. Maybe one or two, which makes sense for them, for the cost and the time commitment on there. Okay, just based on two key dimensions. It looks at internal factors. Okay, total scores times the axis and the external. It looks at growth and build. Hold and maintain. Maybe that's what you want to do. Competitors in there. I don't want to move. I want to just don't lose my market share. I may not grow, but I want to hang on to it for now because I'm not ready. Maybe with the employees, or I'm not ready. I'm not sure. Is this going to go forward? What's going to happen with the laws and regulations? But that's when I hold on. I don't want to lose. Remember, business. I don't want to lose my market share because I start losing it. It takes that downward slope. You want to at least maintain it. You want the growth, but maybe you saturate enough, and you're looking at another demographic, another area you want to go. But it's you don't want to lose that. You want to still compete and keep what you have. Okay. And then here's an example, and a figure, and it just goes into there, and it has the numbers. Again, we discussed that in our lectures or in our discussion board. Okay, so I got that. Now this next one is the grant, another matrix. As I said, don't worry about it. Based on two evaluation, competitive and market industry. Again, here's the matrix. This one's a little easier. You know what I'm talking about? See, where do you fall in after you do the review and answer the question? So your first quadrant basically tells you concentration in current market. That's what you decided to do as your next 2 to 5 year strategy. And you're looking at market penetration or development, products, product development. You're in excellent position, okay, in this one. So quadrant one, you fall in there. Quadrant two, unable to compete effectively. You fall into quadrant two, determine why the firm's current approach is ineffective. I got to change something. Reorganization, restructures. All right, something's going to happen. New supplier, new thing, new marketing. This is strategic. What's going to happen? And then how does the company CEO change to improve its competitiveness? Evaluate the present approach to the market and play seriously. All right. Now the third quadrant is makes drastic changes. Avoid decline. You're already going down. I got to do something. I'm sinking. The ship is, the shareholders are going. I think that's where Sears and Kmart. Kmart's already a lost cause. Sears still could survive. They had the catalog. They just got to reposition themselves. Because Sears is basically for the baby boomers. They know it. Younger generation, what the heck, Sears for the old people. How do I make myself young again? New and improved Sears. So you have to have a different approach. They're doing it all online. So maybe the catalog, they thought catalog went away because we went to malls and everything else. Maybe they resurrect their catalog business that they were so successful with. Okay? And then the next quadrant is 3, is drastic changes. Oh, they're compete in slow growth industries, have weak competitive positions. Okay? Now the other one, quadrant 4, high cash flow levels and limited internal growth needs, can pursue related or unrelated diversification. Okay? So if I'm looking at that, let me just adjust this a little. Hang on. There we go. Makes it a little bit easier when I'm looking at you. Look at my screen. And then, so I'm looking at this quadrant, competitive position, but are in slow growth industries. Okay? Now, the next one you have is quantitative strategic planning matrix, another matrix. Do I got a picture? Okay. Objectively indicates which alternative strategies are the best, uses input from stage 1 and matching results to stage 2 to decide objectively among the alternatives. So, Dr. George, you have to look at the matrix. So I have a key factors table. These are the key factors: economy, competitive, right? So you got this, and you're doing a weight. Which one is more important? So I know which one I should focus on right away. And the 6 steps, and this one is okay. I'll just leave it this way. List firms' key external opportunities and threats. The other one, assign weights to each external. It's a probability. Which one weighs more? So if you kind of a ranking using either software or a mathematical formula. Okay. Determine attractiveness. Compute the total attractiveness scores. Compute the sum of the total, and then okay. So that's what this one does when you look at the whole matrix on here. Okay, now positive featuring of this matrix is set of strategies can be examined sequentially or simultaneously. Requires the strategist to integrate external and internal factors into this. All of this into the decision process. I just put that in, so I reminded myself. A lot of times I just assume students read it, understand this, and this is just a review. No, I understand. Limitations of the QSPM always requires informative judgment. Only as goods are prerequisite to info matching analysis. And here's a table, and again, this is how you do it. You got to weight it, and it comes in the book. Look in the book, and then when you're actually looking at this, like you do any kind of graph, read it real quickly. Graphs ain't hard once you see them. There's just so many different graphs. You're going, geez, it's okay. All right? Don't worry about it. You got all the graphs? Okay. Now let's get into something easy. Dr. George, you're killing me. No, I'm not. I'm having fun with you. I had to study for these graphs. Some of the graphs I've utilized in business, in a corporate, in small businesses, but I got to look at them again. Come on, there's so much that we have to do. You just got to refresh it. Just look at the graph and then look. Oh, now I see. And remember, you're looking at it, and you have to explain it to somebody who doesn't know it. Once you understand, it's not that bad. And the graph is more puts a visual with your words, and instead of the weighted, what's the weight of giving all these math formulas, you have it down. Same thing when you take me to finance and you look at the ratios and everything else, the statistics. You're basically looking at the end number. The statistician or the accountant will basically come up with the numbers for you, taking all that data, but making it in a simplified manner or a graph so you can see we're losing money, or you looking at percentage, how much I improved or lost from last quarter. Okay. All right, cultural aspect of strategy, analysis, and choice. Require few cultural changes. Attractive because extensive changes take longer and costly. So you don't want to do too much unless you really, you see it as a benefit. Strategically, I have to be positioned. Like many of you are going to college, taking a class, and you go, and a lot of my students are baby boomers, or maybe in their 30s, 40s. I forget where you fall in at. You know what I mean? And you've got a good job, you're doing pretty well, but the company says we're going to be bought out, or you see the company's going to be purchased with another company. More of the larger companies coming in, you have to have some education, at least 2 years, 4 years, or maybe your MBA if you're a middle manager, or your PhD or DBA if you're in business. Because you remember the difference between a DBA and a PhD, same equivalent, same amount of work. PhD is more theoretical going forward. DBA is Doctors in Business Administration. At that level, is more of a practitioner. We have to put this into effect within 2 to 3 years. Not in a theory sometimes. Well, it'll happen. We're looking at it now, and we're going to have to implement it within the next 2 years. A little difference. Not to say that the PhDs won't do the same thing, but they're a little more trained for a little longer time frame. But a lot of them, trust me, my competitors, it doesn't make a difference. PhD or DBA. If you got your business and your PhD in management and everything else, you're going through the same thing. Instead of looking in 5, 10 years, you're doing it in 2 or 3 years. Very easy to combine. You got to start working up. But you're looking at more current data and actually implement it. A practitioner, I got to make it happen. I have to see it. All right. Okay. Require a few cultural changes. Jeez, I keep on getting these pop-ups on my email. I'm a busy. Okay. Political maneuvering. Let's look at politics. Diverts human energy, subverts organizational. Sometimes you have to be involved in the PR, the political aspect. Chicago, you got to be involved in the political aspect. Or you're looking strategically and you're going to be opening up a business and you're trying to get a tax break. Or you're trying to get the government to pay for your labor costs because it's an area that has high unemployment. So, but you want, or you have your political, your PR, public relation individuals are also in there talking to, not to convince or bribe the politician, but to explain the process why this legislation will hurt my business versus somebody else or the industry. Okay. And sometimes you have political, you hire political individuals for your lobbyists, but sometimes the lobbyists, they have their own, they may be a lobbyist for the industry, not necessarily for your own organization. Okay, a political bias, personal preference. After a while, you like one politician over another. I don't know if that's good or bad. So you have to look at that. All right, remember, all of this telling is be aware of it. You have to build in it. There's no way you're going to get out of it. Don't be political. You see a lot of individuals, they're talking to Democrats, they're talking to Republicans, they're talking to socialists, they're talking to a conservative. It doesn't make a difference. Middle individual, what do you call it, Tea Party. I'm trying to hit them all. I have to be involved in all of them because bottom line, they all have some impact on the legislation that I may have to deal with down the road. So let's convince them, not buy them off, not bribe. Let's educate them. Remember, a lot of the individuals that are, for you lack of better words, your politicians are lawyers because they could, or doctors. They could leave their job and come back if they don't get elected next time. Some are career politicians. How they made all that money amazes me on their salary. Something's going on here, but that's not up to me. I'm just, I'm just a business owner trying to make sure to hear my voice. Okay, and tactics to aid the strategist basically is choose methods that afford company employee commitment. And a lot of larger companies do have somebody else in the public relation that actually deals with the legislative or the congressman or the House representative or the local officials. You know what I mean? And they may talk to them. They can't take any money, any bribes, but they basically are, they're involved in some of the decision making and putting in their concerns or their objections. But they utilize some of these strategic models, how it's going to affect the company. Because if I go under, that means I'm not paying taxes anymore. If I go under, if you make it too hard, I'm leaving the area and going someplace else. I'm in Illinois, and Illinois is high tax rate, but not as bad as California and New York. So I'm not complaining. But if I had to move, I'm a small independent. It doesn't make a difference. Talk about that. But if I was a larger company, I have to look at it. I know Amazon wants to open up another headquarters. They're looking at Chicago, and it says, well, the taxes are too high. Taxes are only like 2% of the what do you call it, their decision making on there. They're looking at transportation, they're looking at workforce, they're looking at are they close to other individuals, other stores, is there a good market? Everyone's got to pay taxes, right? But that's not the main deciding factors. Do I get the property? How much do I got to renovate? How close am I to the hub center? How close were the people who come in there? Because I'm looking at a higher end, maybe, because the headquarters. Is there colleges? Is there training? We got a lot of good universities. I'm selling. You see how I'm doing? I'm a PR guy here, not trying to sell. This is for Amazon. I'm working for a company, or in this case, I'm working for the city. Okay. I'm not working for the city. I'm just making it up. Okay. Okay. Now, board of directors. Now, when you look at a board of directors, and most of you had that in intro but a lot of this you already covered in other classes. You took me for finance. You took me for management. You took me for intro to business. You took me for marketing, advertising. You see, this class is a capstone. All you've learned now, you're going to actually have to take all that knowledge and you're looking at what's good market penetration. What do you need to talk about market penetration? What are you talking about liquid my assets? What are you doing about reorganizing? All that you've already had in other classes, and this is now you're at the middle manager thinking strategically going forward. Okay. Board of directors control the oversight of management. Remember, they don't. I don't, as a stockholder or public or private, I don't basically select management. I select a board of directors who has my interest or my or my what I want them to do. Do I want them to expand? Do I want to not to take risky? Whatever. I'm trying to make it uh, so it's kind of generic. All right. Consideration of stockholders, their interests, advancement of stockholders' rights, and principle of good governance. If I look at the board of education, of board of directors, no more than two directors, current or former co-executive. Okay, the audit, compensation, and nominating for committees are mainly made up of solely outside directors. You don't want somebody in there because they're going to kind of favor, put their pet projects in. Each director owns a large equity stock in the company, excluding stock options. Stock option means I've got some bonds or something else. I get the option, but I don't have to take them. I could take cash or do some other stuff with it. It depends. Look, this terms and conditions. I'm just doing generally. All right. General understanding, for lack of a better word. Each director attends at least 75% of all meetings. Look at our congressmen or some of our representatives. They don't fault on any of the things that are important to me. They just show up every now and then and get a paycheck. Hey, what I hire you? You're AWOL, missing in action. Get in there, vote. Well, I don't want to upset anybody. You're upsetting me because you're not voting. Okay? For my well-being. Right? A board of directors meets regularly as regular without the management present. You don't want management in there because you're making a decision. We're not talking management. We're talking about the president, vice president, the higher echelon, not the lower management. When they meet, they're talking about the big decision makers or changers of organization. Okay, CEO is not also chairman of the board, chairperson of the board. And that's, remember, this is principles of good. Some companies they are because they can't find anyone else, or that's the way the company's set up. Smaller, because he has or she has a majority of shares. Remember, terms and conditions. This is just generally if you want to keep it separate and not too influential from others within the company or outside the company. And then no interlocking directorship. I was going to say dictatorship. Or it's Alexa, I just throw in the words without really looking at closer. Where a director or CEO sits on another director's board. My competition, they sit on my board. That's not really good. Which one does he want? Or is another company, a supplier, on the same board? That's You got a conflict of interest. Remember, smaller companies a little different. You can't get the board of directors, but overall, try to keep it clean. So this way, there's everyone has a fair play, especially to the shareholders, investors. You don't get that. You don't get stuck in doing something that may be questionable or unethical, and may be illegal. All right. Okay, I got it stuck for a second. So we've covered everything else here. There's a lot of charts and everything else. And I think some of the reason is I might leave it at the 150. It's just that I got so much in my memory, even though I've got a large, I think this computer's a couple of years old. I'm just filling time to say, there we go. Jeez, all right, so let me just do one thing. I'll put this back. Oh, I got all the graphs open. I'll put this back at 150. And I'll bring it all back in to expand to the first level, and I'll do like they taught you in speech class. And after I did all my presentation, so we talked, I look at the Smith & Wesson Holding Corporation, different process in selecting. You looked at the analytical framework. The SWAT matrix is always used in everything else, real easy to see. And you got to look external, internal factors that makes a difference. What do I do? Not only in your own business, you also do something similar like that to your competitors and see where they have the strengths or weaknesses, or new markets coming in, or new companies coming in. Strategic positioning, let me go this way. Strategic positioning and action space matrix, steps in developing the space matrix, Boston Consulting Group, that's the one that's utilized a lot, internal and external matrix. You had to start off with that. Remember, a lot of companies utilize two of these in combination. Four is a little bit stretching unless you got a lot of money or you got different individuals looking. And you could have. You got a large company and they're all doing something. You got a different region. One region uses this one. You make another region use this one. And then later on you bring them all together and go, what do we have? Which one makes sense? And it's like it's like a second opinion, but you giving you kind of the same information in just another viewpoint. Okay? That's why they cover all this. And then, quantitative strategic planning, cultural aspects of to analyze and choice, and then your board of directors and the governance. All right, that's it, class. We've done everything else. Let's see how long I have. I enjoyed it. I slowed down a little bit more than the last one, but there's just a lot of information. The graphs, look at them, take your time. All you have to do is look at my main points here when you go on here on the SWOTs. You don't have to look at everything else. Just, close all these off, and it just has the main ones, and then you'll have a good idea. So you know the processes, all right? Don't get too freaked out on this. I understand this. It's not that hard. It's just a lot of visual all at once because there's different graphs, and they're still basically measuring the same thing. What is the strategic plan of my organization going forward? Some are more simple, some a little more complex. What do you think I got? 40 minutes? I try to keep it under 30. Definitely under, need an hour. 37 minutes. All right. See you in chapter 7. Or I'll see you online in my discussion board, or my blended class, or face-to-face class, or if you're just looking at this video because I'm an instructor at the college I teach at, supplied you this, see me online, see me in what do you call it, for lack of a better word, in the hallway, and say, Dr. George, how you doing? I like your videos, all right? Have a nice day. And if you, all community colleges will cover this, and you could also use this as a supplement, okay? Because you all have to go through these different matrices. I'm done.